Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Well, very pleasant good Monday morning. Welcome into Life Planning 101 right here on KATX, KWBY. Terry Slavens with you, and joined now by Angela Robinson. We have a hot topic today.
That is right. A great topic today. I'm really excited to talk about this, and I know if I say the title of this topic, everybody's going to be like, oh, I don't need any information on that. But here's the funny thing about this is probably, I don't know, 8 out of 10 people that we talk to have problems with this situation.
Naming your beneficiary.
Yes. Naming your beneficiary.
Of course, the knee-jerk reaction or answer is, well, my spouse or my kids.
That's right.
But there's a lot more that goes into it.
There is a lot more that goes into it. Just to kind of give you a few, I actually pulled up a great article this morning because I was curious, and it's all over the web. Like if you Google it, you could say naming your beneficiary, and you'll see mistakes, common mistakes, common mistakes, common mistakes. And it's because there are huge common mistakes. I wanted to share with you some of these mistakes just to get the show started, but I'm actually not going to give you the solutions for them till later in the show, but just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Assuming that your will is going to take care of it is a mistake. Naming a minor child is a mistake. Not only costly, but it could mean that someone gets appointed to that money that you don't even want appointed to that money. So think about that one. Making a dependent ineligible for government benefits, a special needs child. Having 3 on a life insurance policy. In other words, someone being the owner, another person being the insured, and a third being the beneficiary. We'll talk about that. Someone knowing that you have a life policy. In other words, someone not knowing that you have a life policy. We see that all the time. You know, even husband and wives, it blow your mind. Well, I didn't know he had that. I didn't know she had that. And not telling people that you have life insurance policies is really important.
It's very important to be able to file the claim to know that it's available.
Right. That's right. And, you know, and I just, you know, I remind you of grief during that. You know, a lot of times people think, well, they'll find it in my house. Well, what if they're so grief-stricken that they don't go through the items in your house for a year?
Just dealt with it, not personally dealt with it, but had a good friend whose husband passed away suddenly up in Illinois, and she had no clue. She didn't even know where to find his Social Security card.
Yep.
I mean, and she found investments that she had no earthly idea even existed.
That's right.
And it took months for her to untangle everything.
Yeah, we're huge promoters on give us everything you have. Give us your life.
Right. And
not necessarily that we need it, but that your heirs, your surviving. We have 2 services, surviving spouse service and surviving children service. And we actually help whoever it is from A to Z. Go sit with the attorney, find every document, yada, yada. And we do it for that reason right there, because it is more than not. You know, some of the biggest disasters we have is when the kids are our clients, and you know, here is 90-year-old grandma or mom that passed and having to dig through everything to find everything. It's a disaster. So get off on a tangent. Okay, back to the beneficiaries. Lump sums to dysfunctional family members. You know, sometimes I think we all want to hesitate and say my kids are perfect, but when we get to the true inner workings of things, we're all dysfunctional at some level. We all are. I'm dysfunctional at some level, but some of us are more dysfunctional than others when it comes to money or money problems.
Right.
And I think that's something that, you know, is a big mistake with beneficiary designations, because, you know, it's not exactly what could you imagine aiding and abetting someone's gambling habit?
Wow, no.
Yeah, or aiding and abetting worse, a drug habit or an alcohol problem. And sometimes that's what happens if you have your beneficiary labeled wrong.
Many lottery winners.
Yes. Blow it.
Can't handle it.
That's exactly
End up
right.
broke.
That's right. And naming only a primary beneficiary. I think this is the most common. Most people only put a primary beneficiary on their form.
So you should have
a
secondary or
That's
a contingent.
Right. That's right. And we're going to talk about that, all of these things during the show. We do have a Twitter poll today because I am curious, more often than not recently, and I don't know why it's just been recently, but we've been having people come in and they have their beneficiaries label, and it's a minor child. It's someone under the age of 18. So that's going to be our Twitter poll today. Tweet us at KFS Life Planning. Do you have a minor child, someone under the age of 18, named as one of your beneficiaries or a contingent beneficiary? Yes or no? Tweet us at KFS Life Planning. So make sure you do that, and we'll announce those poll results because I'm really curious.
I bet there's a lot.
There are lots, and you don't think about it. You have a responsible 17-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid. You just put them on there, or especially younger adults do this all the time. We see that quite commonly. So those are really important things to think about. But when we come back, we need to go through what types of accounts do have beneficiaries. What if you don't name someone as a beneficiary? What happens? And then last but not least, whom should you not name as beneficiaries?
All coming up next on Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. And welcome back into Life Planning 101. Terry Slavin's with you, joined by Angela Kennedy Robinson. She's our resident expert. Always enjoy this Monday morning get-together.
I don't think anybody wants to talk about death, right? we don't like to. It's a morbid situation. But just imagine that if, your wife had passed and suddenly you and your oldest daughter afterward were killed in a car wreck on the way home from, a doctor's appointment or whatever. And on your beneficiary form, you had your wife as the primary, which was already gone, and then your two daughters named as your contingent beneficiaries. And that was it. That's how they were listed. Well, if you and your oldest daughter are killed in that car wreck, now what that would mean is that 100% of your assets would go to that youngest daughter. Well, is that really okay? Because your oldest daughter has 3 children. Have you thought about it? And so a lot of people don't think about these types of situations. Or worst case scenario, imagine that if you had a daughter that ended up passing and you love your son-in-law to pieces, but he ends up remarrying, and then that new spouse that you never even knew ended up with your money instead of your grandkids. Would that be okay?
No,
it wouldn't be okay. So I think, naming your beneficiaries is extremely, extremely important. And a lot of people don't understand, what all of this means or what it is. So we're going to kind of start from scratch. What are the types of accounts that have beneficiary designations, okay? And by the way, I want you to remember, I've talked about this on the show before, your will is simply a vacuum cleaner. It's just there to pick up bits and pieces of things that are left behind. Beneficiary designations are on what you call contract properties. I want you to think of it, if you had that vacuum cleaner, these contract properties, like the furniture that you'd have to move out of the way before you can use the vacuum cleaner. So it doesn't matter what your will says. Your beneficiaries supersede that.
Supersedes the will.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more things than just life insurance policies.
That's exactly right. And life insurance is a good first one to talk about because we talked about that 3 on the policy. Here's something to think about. This is a common mistake. Let's say I owned a policy on my husband, but the beneficiary was my son. Well, that may sound like that would all work out okay, but really it doesn't, because if my husband were to die, it would actually be treated, the life insurance proceeds typically are tax-free. But in this situation, because of the way it was set up, those benefits would be treated as a gift to my son, which could be taxable.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that. Okay, so it's extremely important for you to think about how these are set up. Just because it's a life insurance policy doesn't mean it's A-okay either. Retirement plans are probably the worst. You're talking about retirement plans like your 401k, 403b, and then you have your IRAs. There's a difference. With your IRAs, you can name your beneficiaries pretty straightforward. If you don't name a beneficiary, like life insurance, it would go to your estate. There is a problem with that, and I want to get back to that. But with a retirement plan, like a 401k, 403b, your teacher's retirement systems, you really need to look at your plan documents and see what things default to. Because they default to perhaps a spouse, perhaps living relatives. There is a plan in place in most retirement plan documents for you. So here you are thinking your will takes care of that. Nope.
No.
Not at all, okay? That's a big problem. Swinging back over on the side of the IRA, this is a situation that we are actually going through right now. We have one beneficiary that was titled as the estate. Now, the reason it was is because there was a trust set up in the estate, which is fine. And you can do things like this on an IRA. But what you have to know is that you are going to do some hardcore fighting with institutions to make sure that that money isn't fully taxable in all one fell swoop. Key and point. Let's say you have $500,000 in an inherited IRA, but the beneficiary was the estate. Typically, most tax advisors would tell you this. Well, you're just going to pay tax on that over 1 or 5 years. Take your pick on $500,000. Wow, right? That's not true. There's two custodians out there that will allow you to transfer. As long as the will describes the certain beneficiaries, then there's 2 custodians you can transfer that money out to, and then it be spread out over your lifetime. You don't have to take it all in 1 year. So it's really important to get expert advice, and if you're naming your estate on a document, you better have a dang good reason why, because it's really hard. And what if those 2 custodians decide not to do it anymore?
Right.
Okay, so you got to be very, very conscientious of all these little keys and points.
You hear a lot about trust, and I'm sure that's a whole nother show that we could discuss trust. But do trusts become beneficial to help sell estates? In a nutshell, I mean, like this.
Absolutely. In fact, if you have a trust that is to be the beneficiary of an IRA or life insurance, typically your attorney will give you the language to put as your beneficiary, and it describes that trust.
Right.
So it's not the estate. It would be a trust inside
somebody's
there.
Living trust or whatever.
And typically they're, those types of trusts are what you call testamentary, and they're created by your will. Most of those are. So, because a living trust is while you're living, and then you have a testamentary trust, which is irrevocable. You can't take it back. So, and that's the type of trust. Even sometimes your living trust creates that testamentary trust. So, or that irrevocable trust. It turns into that at that point. So, it's really important that your advisor, your CPA, and your attorney are all working together if you're doing trust planning.
Exactly.
So, it's hugely important. And a lot of people don't understand that. They get a trust set up. They think they've done all this work, and they never fund it.
So there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. So nothing goes into the trust. So they spend $2,000 setting up a trust, and guess what?
They got a $2,000 piece of paper.
Plus, you got a taxable IRA. Ouch. What did you just
Double
do to
whammy,
yourself?
yeah,
exactly. So make sure, this is so important. I know the topic sounds boring, but it's not. This is, in fact, what we do is we have an agenda with our clients that we use. If we go over certain items every year, we name out all the beneficiaries on all the contract property that we know, so we can review that with those clients and go over it and make sure that's what they want on those documents. It's that important. It's extremely important. Titling of assets is the same way. So great questions. Other accounts, payable on death accounts, transfer on death accounts. Okay, those are like things that you would do at a bank, a savings account. Those also have beneficiaries. A lot of times we see those used to pay, expenses for funerals and such, and it's a really, really good idea. But just keep in mind that you're disinheriting who you don't name on those. When we come back, we'll talk about who you don't want to name as your beneficiaries.
Wow. Good stuff. Not the kind of stuff that you dwell on day in and day out, but stuff that you need to know when you're making these decisions, because
That's right.
Especially young people, they get a job and they go in and they say, who do you want your beneficiary to be? Well, I'm going to name my girlfriend my beneficiary. You're like, probably not a good idea.
Yep, think again.
Probably not a good idea. We'll take a break, come back with the final segment of Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. And welcome back into Life Planning 101 on KTX KWBY. Angela Robinson, naming your beneficiary, final segment.
Yes, and great topic. One other account we failed to mention before the other show is annuities. And a lot of people have annuities. So
Yes.
you need to think about that, because it is contract property. You do name your beneficiaries. It does supersede your will. So think about that. Whom should you not name as your beneficiary? Well, minors, disabled people, and in certain cases, your estate and your spouse. So even though as funny as that may seem, it kind of excludes everybody. In other words, you have to really think through what you're trying to accomplish, okay? There are a lot of terms. And just to kind of go back to our story earlier in the show where we had mom and dad pass with the oldest sister who had 3 kids. So everything was left to the youngest sister at 100%, and he disinherited his grandchildren. How do you protect that from happening, okay? There's actually legal lingo that you can use at the end of your beneficiaries when you name them to protect from that. Had he put purse stirpies on those beneficiaries for his kids, it would have been fine. It would have been passed to the 3 grandchildren and then his other daughter 50-50.
Right.
Okay. So that's a great one to be able to know. Per capita is another one. A lot of times they say, well, I know my kids would take care of my grandkids. I'm not worried about it. I just want to make sure it stays in that first generation. And even if one of them passes, I still just want it to stay in that first generation. Okay. Using the word per capita or share and share alike will accomplish that. So you can dictate all that. You don't have to have a long drawn out will to explicit how you want things to go. You actually have that lingo to be able to use on a beneficiary form. The key is making sure you have those contingents listed, because you got to think about how much time do you and your spouse spend together?
A lot,
right?
Yeah.
So if you were to have a freak accident, is it likely that both of you would be together?
Very possible. I've known people that would fly separate airlines, going to the same destination, or separate planes going to the same destination.
Yep,
because of that.
Because of that. That's exactly right. So, making sure that you have those contingents listed is extremely, extremely important. And knowing what, the advantages, disadvantages, and the tax implications of how you have them listed is even more important. So, to your point, when for our business, for instance, we have, my dad, my brother, my husband and myself are kind of the primaries in the business. And so we do what you just said. We split up flights because we don't ever want to be on the same flight. And we try to split up car rides too, so that we never are all 4 in the same vehicle at the same time. So I think it's really important. We kind of, we think we're as important as the President of the United States, but we do that for our clients.
But you think back several years ago, the Dodge House out here.
That's right. All the owners in one plane.
Yes.
That's exactly right. So you have to think about those things, and it's really important. We have some great information on this, by the way. You can actually subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Kennedy-financial.com, and subscribe, or like us on Facebook, and you can follow all of these articles. We also keep them archived here at the show, KATXradio.com, KWBYradio.com. So you got tons of resources to be able to go to.
No excuses.
And
Gotta
no
find
excuses.
them.
And it explains all these types of designations and kind of gives you a checklist, which is the last thing I really want to go over of what you really should do all the time. Number 1, making sure, again, you have both primary and contingent beneficiaries. If not, knowing the reason why. Okay. Number 2, keeping records of your beneficiary changes and having confirmation of receipt. Most of the companies, annuity companies, life insurance companies, retirement plan companies, are they big?
Yes.
Do you think there's a chance they may make a mistake?
Absolutely.
Okay, so keep documents. Make sure that you have all of that, and someone knows, preferably your advisor, knows exactly where that stuff is. That's why we do that annual review. We make sure our records are in line with the client's wishes and are in line with the company, what they say, right? It's really, really important. Number 3, review your beneficiary designations on an annual basis. Does life happen?
Yes.
Yes, things change. We actually had a client that he forgot to change, even though, we advised him on it, everything else. We got to make sure and change all these beneficiaries. He left his ex-wife on his 401k for about 7 years, and he was remarried.
Wow. Did he catch
would've-
it before?
Yes,
okay,
he
good.
didn't die, thank goodness, because if he did die, he may have been killed again by his new wife, I think. It would be really important.
Double jeopardy there.
Double jeopardy, right? But it's really important. Anytime you have a new birth in the family, a lot of times people don't think of that one. Grandkids. Do you want to start including them in your planning? Think about it. If you just have those 2 beneficiaries listed out, like that gentleman did you disinherit your grandkids by doing that? Was that your intention? Is that what you want?
Right.
If they would be the cause of that, how are you going to have that labeled? You need to make sure there's a custodian named for them or a trust laid out for them. If not, that might be court appointed and costly. Very, very costly. Let me put that one out there. I hope everybody heard that. Death like we talked about, or divorce, right?
Life events.
Life events, that's right. You got to look at all of them. And then know what default provisions are in the governing contract property so that if something happened to your beneficiary, if they predeceased you and then you didn't have time to change it in time, what would happen by default? Know that. So you make sure you cover yourself for that situation. We appreciate all of our listeners every week. We hope our information is valuable. Make sure you email us your questions, lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. We want to know them. And take our Twitter poll. Don't forget, at KFS Life Planning, do you have a minor named on one of your beneficiaries? Yes or no? No bias. No judgment. Just know you need to change it, but answer our poll honestly so we can give our consumers feedback. So we appreciate everybody. God bless and have a great week. My name is Angela with Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Texas. Great town of Eastland, Texas.
Another great show, Angela. Always enjoy the information and look forward to next week. And don't forget, you can listen to the archives on KTXradio.com, KWYradio.com.
iTunes,
all
iHeartRadio,
over
yes.
the place.
Yep.
So always good stuff, and just look forward to bringing more great information. And I don't know, we might come up with I have some ideas of some topics I'd like to.
Great. And we want to know them. If our listeners have ideas, we want to know them. Email them to us. It helps us be able to create these shows so they're valuable for you. That's our goal.
Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Carlton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Carlton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.